Hey guys, Teeple here. Today we're going to check out a replay of the Orion, the Tier 3 Royal Navy battleship. For this ship I got Andrew Cunningham, which is a battleship-centric commander that I unlocked somehow. For perks I got a reduce fire and flood chance, increase armor piercing damage, slash traverse speed. Decrease the dispersion of the main guns with the penalty to the rudder shift, which we'll talk about the ship a little bit more in a minute here, and increase the main gun range. So mostly focusing on the gun characteristics. These low to mid-tier British battleships are interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, they have extremely slow turret traverse, so if you watched my mod video that we put up a day or two ago, I said for battleships I usually prefer to not go with the mod that switches or helps the turret traverse. Usually opting for the aiming instead. That I continue to employ on this particular ship, but you can make a real strong argument that the one that cuts down turret traverse would be a better option on these ships. I think it's through the Queen Elizabeth that it's really slow. But regardless of what mods you use, you're definitely going to have to focus on trying to keep your guns pointed to one side as much as possible, only switching them if the situation definitely requires it, which means you need to plan ahead very well and try and predict how the battle is going to unfold, and then position yourself so that you're always going to have your guns pointed in the direction that you need it to be. So we'll kind of see that as this game goes on here. This Kuma, you can see his smokes, the smoke from his smokestacks goes away, so he's sitting in the water. Always check the smokestacks to look at directions of the ship. He does start to move just at the last second, but we're able to overpin him a few shots, so that's alright. The other interesting thing about these British battleships, so they have an extremely high fire chance for their HE shells. I didn't play around with it on the Tier 3 Orion just because it didn't take particularly that many games to get through. I might try it a little bit with the, what is it, the Iron Duke. I've heard some people say they're using just strictly HE on the British battleships, and again that's interesting, but my thinking is the AP is still doing about twice as much damage, so I'm not inclined to go with that, just because you know, fire chances I feel like are more, how do I say this? They're more appealing for like a ship like a cruiser, where you're putting out shots rapidly. So let's say, just throwing out numbers, let's say the cruiser's fire chance is 20%, and you're firing 5 shells every 6 or 7 seconds. Compare to that to, let's say a battleship fires 8 shells every 30 seconds, but their fire chance is 30% or 40%. You're still going to have a much better chance to set fires with the cruiser, because you're just, each shell has that, well, it's lower chance in this particular example, hypothetical example. Over time, you're still, due to the increased fire output, you have a much greater chance to set multiple fires, which is what, if you're trying to set fires, you want to set 2, 3, or even 4 if you can. Setting 1 here or there really isn't that effective, at least against battleships. So early on, playing through this line again, just to reiterate, I'm planning on going armor pierce around, but I will test it out, and next replay from this line I'll probably elaborate on my thoughts as they're evolving. But it's just something to consider, and I always recommend everyone to try everything. You know, it's good to listen to other people's opinions, for sure, so that it can add new ways of thinking, you know, to your repertoire. But at the end of the day, you know, how I play the game may be different from how you play the game, so just blindly adopting how I play it or how someone else plays it may not actually be the best option for you, so give it a whirl. And by the way, let me know in the comments. That's part of the reason I was choosing this replay. I did want to hear from you guys how you think about that. Are you using HE on the British battleships, and what are your results? Or if not, have you tried them both? Let me know your experience, basically, and I'll just check that out, and maybe that'll give me some ideas as to how to proceed going forward. But anyway, you can see just firing AP shells, we're obviously having a great deal of success. Now a lot of these guys are just sitting still. Sitting still in the open like this is not a good idea. Sometimes if you're behind like an island or you have some sort of cover, it can be useful, but I don't think sitting still in the open is ever a good idea. Changing your speed, definitely a good idea. That'll make it harder for people to track you and ultimately hit you. But I would always try and keep moving, just because I think it makes you harder to hit, but mainly because it's hard to accelerate from a dead stop. So if you need to move, like let's say you have torpedoes coming at you, like this guy does, once he realizes that they're coming at him, he's not going to be able to do anything about it. Whereas if he's moving even half speed, he'll be able to at least have a chance to get away from these. Now these particular two torpedoes don't look like they're going to hit, or maybe the follow-up one will, but you get what I'm saying.
Our victory is in sight.
And you'll notice I've had a single fire burning for a lot of the match. Battleships, I've mentioned this in other videos, but unless you're really low in health, I generally don't recommend putting out a single fire. It's just the damage controlled party is too valuable to waste on a single fire for a battleship. Just because if you get torpedoed or someone comes back and hits you with 3 or 4 fires after you've used it, well then you're in serious trouble. Whereas one is not going to be the end of the world. And fire damage is considered light damage, which your repair party heals primarily light damage, so a single fire is mostly healable, and it's not that big of a threat. So they were able to lock up the Confederate. Confederate you get for damaging 6 enemy ships. So all in all, I thought this was a pretty good game in the Orion, and thought it showed out how I would play the ship. So if you did like the video, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. We'll always have more World of Warships content coming. Again, comments about the ship or the line in particular, please leave them below. And we'll see you guys all later. Alright, peace.